I think I'm pretty down to earth. I just talk to you normally.
That's Dan Clancy, CEO of Twitch. Not your typical tech CEO. Most people don't even know his company is owned by Amazon.
I don't think anyone's going to use Twitch because they're owned by Amazon. I don't think anyone's going to not use Twitch because they're owned by Amazon.
Meanwhile, every app on your phone now has a live tab. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
So you don't feel like worried about YouTube and Instagram going harder on live?
No. In fact, I actually think in many ways, if you think of all of the live stream stars, they all became stars on Twitch.
He's betting the whole company on one idea, that you can't swipe away.
AI actually isn't good enough to create an entertaining live stream.
And there's one big athlete he tells me is using Twitch in a way that surprises me. My name is Uptin, and this is What's Uptin. On the show this week, Dan Clancy, CEO of Twitch.
All right, so Dan, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun.
So when I told some people that I'm interviewing the CEO of Twitch, Dan Clancy, they had the same reaction, like, whoa, he's not a typical tech CEO. What do you think they meant by that?
Hopefully it's a good thing, right? I don't know. I think it's probably that there's a certain distance in tech CEOs. I think sometimes that we create this image and, I think I'm pretty down to earth and, I just talk to you normally. And so I think they don't feel that distance. I think it matches with the platform Twitch, where I, spend a lot of time with our creators and not our big creators. I mean, sometimes big creators, but also our small creators, and I just enjoy it.
You also use the product not with a crew and a team and a PR,
That's much to our crew and team and PR team's chagrin when I started doing it. They're like, are you sure you want to do that, Dan? I was like, yeah, I think it'll be good. Yeah. And I stream myself and I just go live and I use it just like anyone else.
Yeah. So let's talk about live streaming. I interviewed
take this off. We don't need that in there.
All right. So I interviewed the VP of product for Instagram this morning, and she said they're investing a lot in live. Mm-hmm. So what makes Twitch stand out? What makes Twitch relevant? And where do you see it going in the future?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, like, lots of people now have live in their platforms. I often joke I'm waiting for when I hear that McDonald's is launching their live streaming service. But really, actually, Twitch is different than all of them and pretty unique. And here's the way I describe it. On all of the other ones, live streaming is a secondary thing that they do, right? But their apps are mostly optimized for short form content, right? And all of their apps are designed so that you keep swiping onto the next thing. And when they show you live stuff, it's in a discovery surface where you're a swipe away from something else, okay? On Twitch, we put the live stream on the creator's channel. You're not a swipe away from any other content. And the way I describe it is it's designed so people to pull up a chair and stay for a while. And what happens is people start to create horizontal connections because they start recognizing each other in chat and you build a community. Now, everybody uses the word community now. And I think most people don't really know what it means. A community is when you feel a sense of belonging and connection. Church group, running club, a parents group, you feel accepted by a community. There might be lots of people leaving comments in chat, but that doesn't make me feel accepted by the other people in chat. And what a community all comes from shared experiences. If you think of real world communities, it's all synchronous things that we did together where we were there and we were connecting. And that's what happens on Twitch. So these fans, because they spend time together watching a creator become a community, they have bonds with each other. And everyone, if we take YouTube as an example, there were a number of Twitch streamers that YouTube recruited to come over there and stream there instead of Twitch. Every single one of them, once they were stopped with their contract that were paying them a lot, every single one came back to Twitch. Every single one of them said it's because they missed the community.
Really? And what do you think it is about Twitch? I mean, other than the fact that you can only do the live streaming on Twitch versus YouTube, as you said, there's the short form, there's the long form. What do you think it is that made them come back beyond? Because you said something interesting where it's like leaving a comment doesn't make it a community, right? But on Twitch, a lot of the viewers are leaving comments. What makes it?
Well, I'm distinguishing. They're chatting with each other and it's synchronous. So you say something and then I respond back right away. right? And then we know we are both watching this at the same time.
Yeah, you're sharing that same experience
Moment.
because you're in the same moment.
You're
Yeah.
in the same, I say this word, synchronous interaction. There's wonderful values of asynchronous there. You can leave a comment, I leave a comment a day later, okay? That doesn't build a friendship, okay? I often, and this swipe away, I often, if you think of your friends, every deep, meaningful friendship you have started with a series of light, shallow interactions. And they were light, shallow interactions repeated over time, often in a more denser period. That's why when you're in college, many of our good friends come from college, is because there's a density of light, shallow interactions. And then eventually it's like, well, I guess they're my best friend, right? And so it is that sort of experience that builds that sense of connection. And think for a second, suppose we had the ability that whenever you're out hanging out with friends, if you get a little bored, you could swipe and be somewhere else and be with another friend group. And then you could swipe and be back and swipe and be back. Would we have very many friends?
No, because we're not.
Because we'd be bored.
Right.
We'd be sitting there bored with this person that for the first time I'm hanging out with. And I go, oh, let me swipe. And next thing you know, I'm, at somewhere else. It's a little hotter party or whatever. And we wouldn't build those friendships. And so when you're a swipe away, you don't build that emotional connection.
So the USP of Twitch in 2026 is community. We're different because you cannot swipe.
You cannot swipe away, and that builds connection. And so that builds a sense of belonging, and connection between the other people watching and the creator. Because you feel like you're being heard. I was talking to Kevin Durant yesterday, and Kevin Durant likes to watch Twitch. He does it at the handle nobody knows who he is. And Kevin said, yeah, sometimes I leave a comment. Of course, nobody knows it's Kevin Durant. And he said, and when the streamer calls me out, I feel good. Wow. This is Kevin Durant. But he said, and so I feel that oomph of the streamer just called me out, even though he's far more famous than that streamer.
He called out by the
But if Kevin Durant feels that from the streamer calling him out, think about someone who, doesn't have a lot of friends, feeling a little awkward, feeling alone, feels like when a streamer says, hey, JB Johnson, thanks for being here today.
Yeah. So you don't feel like worried about YouTube or Instagram going harder on live?
No. In fact, I actually think in many ways, if you think of all of the live stream stars, they all became stars on Twitch. Every single live stream star that's out there.
Cultural relevancy.
That's cultural relevancy. They're not just a commodity. And in many ways, the Twitch stars are even becoming bigger names. Because interestingly, on the short form content platform, weren't we, dude? Does that work? On the short form content platforms, the star is the platform. The creator is a commodity. On our platform, 50% of our traffic, people navigate directly to the creator's page because they know they'll be live. They go straight there. And so the creator is the star on Twitch, which is why the creators become, because it's not our platform that's the star, they are the star.
So we're sitting here at Cannes Lions at the Amazon port, as they call it. A lot of people still don't know that Twitch is owned by Amazon. Is that by design?
No, but it's not. Like, I don't think anyone's going to use Twitch because they're owned by Amazon. I don't think anyone's going to not use Twitch because they're owned by Amazon. So we have a very distinct identity, right? And it's kind of, it's sort of, a lot of people know it. We talk about it all the time, but most people just aren't aware because it doesn't matter because they're coming for the creators. It's that idea. They're coming for the creator. Everyone knows YouTube is owned by Google. Literally, everyone knows that. For us, the creators, the star, they don't need to know that we're owned by Amazon.
And is there synergies between Amazon? Is there projects going on that you're leveraging with each other?
Lots of different points of synergy. A lot with Prime Video. We're doing interesting stuff with the NBA on Prime Video. We have this thing called Creator Casts, where we get streamers to kind of do watch parties during an NBA game where you're hanging out with 2 or 3 creators. There's not really an alt cast where they're substituting for the commentators. it's a hanging out and they're just reacting and they're interacting with chat. And so we do various things like that. We do a fair amount with Prime Video.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about your background. So you came from NASA. You had a very interesting career. What kind of brought you into tech?
I often talk with younger people about the fact that often we end up places in our lives that we never knew we'd end up being. And it's because we just take these steps and then we put ourselves in boxes. And then sometimes we define ourselves by this and other people define ourselves by this. So interesting, when I was in college, I was a theater major and a computer science major because I was good in math. My math, it had nothing to do with my interest in theater. Interest in theater was about creativity and performance. I graduated, I said, oh, well, I'll use my computer degree. A little bit easier than using a theater degree.
Probably more.
Eventually got a PhD in AI. Okay. And at that point, my model of myself was I was a tech person. I was an engineer. I was going to, I just got a PhD in AI. I was going to solve hard problems. Went to NASA, solved hard problems, ran their AI and robotics research and what they're doing in the future. And I was solving hard technical problems. Then I went to Google and I started out solving hard technical problems. But then over time, I started solving more people problems and organization problems. And the interesting thing, Twitch is this perfect marriage of the creative side of my brain, which is always there. But I was just this tech person. And now I'm as much a creative as I am someone with a tech background.
Do you think that's missing in Silicon Valley? More people who have the creative or that like your theater background?
The interesting thing is, I think that lots of people have different creative aspects of who they are. It's just not highlighted or emphasized. So they are characterized just as a tech person, right? They are, and sometimes I think they put themselves in that box. They think of themselves, I'm a tech person, when they weren't born a tech person. I don't think when their mom had them and they didn't say, honey, look, we had a new tech person. Okay, I don't think any mom ever said that, or dad ever said that. So all of us are far more than the box we put ourselves in.
And do you think like it's kind of missing? You think it needs to be showing more?
I think actually the interesting thing is I think people care about human stories.
Yeah.
We think people care about numbers and stats and all this stuff. No, people care about connecting with people. That's how we were wired.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think too often we don't tell the story that's connecting to the humanity of people.
Obviously AI has become a concern for the Instagrams, the YouTubes. How about for Twitch?
Yeah, for Twitch, in terms of this idea that AI is competing with our creators, there's really, I'll go so far as say, no issue there right now. People are building connections with human beings. AI actually isn't good enough to create an entertaining live stream in general for that long. There's some that do it that are there are a few that are good, but there's this thing AI Jesus. I watch it for 20 minutes. It's kind of fun. I'm not going to watch it any longer.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's an authenticity about the person, and AI is being used by our creators as a way to extend their creativity. But in no way, shape, or form is it substitutional for our creators.
Do you see a scenario maybe in the next year or two where you do a human verification for your users, where they do some sort of test and eye movement and stuff in case AI gets to that point?
Well, we will know. It's one of these things where I will describe now my general feeling about one of the challenges of AI. It's very hard to solve a hypothetical problem when you don't have actual instances of the problem, because invariably you probably won't solve the actual problem that you're having.
You need to solve.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if at some point there is a problem with people where the viewer does not know that it's AI, there are lots of ways that we'll be able to solve that. In general, with our creators, when we create policies that they have to label, they adhere very closely. So I do think if you're ever, oh no, are they really there? I'll use an example which is not AI. A lot of streamers will go ahead and sometimes rerun some of their old streams live. Now it's not AI, but I show up and I'm like, and I'm chatting. and then
They're not
they're
responding.
not responding. I'm like, does he? And so we require them to say it's a rerun. So that way I don't think that they're just ignoring me, and they mark it as a rerun. So to the extent there's going to be AI where people are confused, then we'll say, look, you need to mark this, that you're not there. They will. We'll enforce it. They don't. And we'll be able to figure it out.
What's something that running Twitch that nobody outside of the company would understand?
Just nobody outside.
Yeah.
I don't. So I will say, this is, which is, it's true about many companies, but I think more Twitch than any other company. We talk about community, and our creators are heavily intertwined with Twitch. We depend heavily upon them. They are not just a commodity. For some of the larger social media networks, they care about their creators, but if one creator decides to leave, it's like, okay, well, I got a million of them sitting here. And really, in the same way that they create communities, we have a community of creators with Twitch, and they spend time together, they create together. I spend time with them. And that is one of the things that's wonderful about Twitch. It's also one of the things that's challenging about Twitch, because in the online world, anything we do, there's someone who's going to have something to say about it. And they care deeply about what we do in everything we do. So every product launch, someone is going to be unhappy. The one thing I know, and we live in an online world where whoever's unhappy, it's going to spread. So there's a fair amount of weight that comes from that sense of responsibility for these people whose lives, remember when we didn't know if TikTok would go away. TikTok went away. I think all of them would be creating on YouTube or Instagram. If Twitch went away, all of our creators would not have the same life, which creates a weight of responsibility because they're living a life they never thought they can live. And I need to make sure the company is here 50 years from now.
Does that mean you're maybe less likely to try new products or roll out new features because you're worried about
No,
that?
not at all. I mean, we have to, right? But then we won't be here in 50 years. So you just have to accept, that's a part of my job, is to accept the weight and process the fact that people will mischaracterize what we do.
What is, I'm going to ask you, what excites you the most right now about Twitch?
Well, it's always tricky whenever the most, right? So I'll just say one of the things that excites me, right? Because so often, actually, I'm going to give two answers. So often people always answer that with what's changing, what's different. And so what excites me most today about Twitch is what excited me most about Twitch a year ago. And that's every day, no matter what's happening with us and whatever's in the news and all this, creators are showing up and building community, and their communities keep showing up for them. And it affects people's lives in small micro ways. Okay. Now, if I were to answer the question in the way most people do it, which is about what's different, you see in the past, Twitch was predominantly creators that were first and foremost streamers. Okay. That was their primary mean of building and engaging with their audience. Today, you have a lot of people that are using live streaming as a secondary means of engaging with their audience. So whether it's musicians, Kid Cudi's streaming, Ty Dolla $ign, who's wonderful to meet, DDG, like tons of T-Pain has been streaming for ages, and sports stars. I did a stream with Jaylen Brown the other day. Stud Buds for the Minnesota Lynx. The list goes on, right? Kyrie Irving, Bieber. And so you have all these people, and many of them also influencers, podcasters, are saying, oh, I should add live streaming. And it's exciting to see all these people that are using live streaming to augment a business that isn't purely live streaming.
Interesting. Obviously, you've had to do layoffs like any, tech CEO. Is there something that you have learned or a trend that you've seen, especially with them, let's say Gen Z, that a feature or a quality that that you think is lacking?
There absolutely is no feature or quality that is lacking in Gen Z. I think People love, oh, they don't have the attention span. Oh, they don't, lazy, whatever. I think that is all BS. We look for differences, and the differences are on the edges. Okay, meaning there might be small differences. It's on the edges. They're the same. They're biologically the same. They're looking for a way to have an impact on the world. They're looking for a way to be heard. And so, no, I think we have to run our business to make sure we have the right number of people to support our creators. But, and Gen Z, of course, have different challenges because of how that, but in terms of their capabilities, they are inventive, creative, people.
You're impressed by
Of course I am. Because I see this, and now this isn't through Twitch, this is through my son who's off trying to do something new, and he's 24. And, you see the interesting thing is when you see young people that are kind of given freedom to take agency, you see this energy and creativity. And the challenge only comes when you try to force them down a predefined, rigid path.
It sounds like your parents allowed you to explore and do whatever you want in theater, computer science.
I guess they did. It was almost by default. I had 6 younger brothers and sisters.
So
they couldn't. I often tell a story of a joke that I played football in my freshman year of high school. Okay, and years later, my younger brother, who's like 10 years younger than me, he played football in 8th grade, and I was home over Christmas, and my mom said, Dan, we've had so much fun with Bob playing football. We've gone to the games. I wish you and Joe would have played football. And I said, Mom, I did play football. and then and she said, no, you didn't. I said, I did. You didn't come to any of my practices, and you came to one of my games. You were raising my 6 brothers and sisters at the time. So I did, but it was almost by default,
It sounded like you made light of it. You didn't take it personally.
No, I found it incredibly funny because she kept arguing with me, like telling me I was wrong. She's telling me, no, you didn't. I'm like, Mom, I should know. And she didn't go, oh, really? I don't remember that. No, she was saying, no, you didn't. I'm like, no, I can guarantee you I played football.
Yeah. What is the advice that you would give to someone graduating college? Especially, I've noticed a big trend. Even with millennials, we have this, but Gen Z is even more. They don't want to go for a job, right? I want to be my own boss. I want to be the next, unicorn founder. But what is your advice?
So I'm going to have, I'll have 3 key pieces of advice. Okay. One is be aware that where you end up is not where you're going to start. And so you just have to look for open doors. Success is in part due to skill, hard work, and I will say randomness, or some people call it luck, but being in the right place at the right time. I think in almost every profession except a tiny few. If you take LeBron James, I think it was not, wow, he got a shot to play high school basketball, No, it was hard work and natural skill. Everywhere else, like randomness, and you have to keep your eye out for doors and walk through them because doors aren't always open. So if you're trying to start out, don't be dogmatic about it. I need to do this. Look for a door. Okay. Number 2, don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. If I had to attribute my success is I was a problem finder. I would find problems in whatever role I was in, and then I would find a solution to the problem versus waiting for someone to tell me what to do. I always tell people, do your boss's job. Your job is your boss's job, and if you make it that your boss can do his boss's job, and that way I don't have to work as CEO because everyone ladders up. Number 3, embrace failure. I think the biggest challenge is people fear failing. They're shy because they fail. They worry about not succeeding, and they worry about failing. And failing is the foundation of everything we do. Almost like if you're looking for a job, as opposed to thinking about how many, this idea of one job you get, set a goal of each week how many rejections you're going to get. and say, I need to get 20 rejections every week. And if I don't get 20 rejections this week, then I failed this week. Okay. And so you make failure and rejection the objective. And of course, you won't always fail. But as soon as it becomes the objective, now that feeling bad because you rejected me, it's like, well, of course you rejected me. I was expecting to be rejected. I'm waiting for the person who doesn't reject.
Yeah, it lowers that fear of what if it happens, because you're like, yeah, it's gonna happen.
I often tell this story that I learned whitewater kayaking when I was 10 years ago or something. And when you whitewater kayak, you're in the rapids and you flip over and you're upside down and you have to roll, otherwise you're upside down, and you have to like get out and swim, and then your boat gets water. It's a pain in the ass, and you failed. So when I was learning, I really tried hard not to flip because I was worried I couldn't roll, and I was worried I would feel like a failure because I didn't roll. My son didn't have that. He learned much faster than me. I eventually said, I have to flip 10 times every time I get in the kayak. And that's when I got better. Because I considered flipping failure, and I tried to avoid it, so I would pull back. And then once I had to flip 10 times, I would charge in. And now failure became success, and I got better.
The last question I like to end on the podcast is, what keeps you up at night?
The biggest thing that keeps me up at night is the fact that this world is always changing. And given that I am not the demographic of my core audience, right? My core audience, 18 to 35. Let's say I squarely am not the demographic of our core audience.
So you said,
Yeah, a little bit older than that. So I need to keep understanding how the world is changing and how younger people are changing, and observe it, because I don't live that life. But if I'm going to lead Twitch, I need to understand those people, and that takes effort and everything else to make sure we adapt with our audience.
what do you do now to do that?
I spend a lot of time with our streamers. The interesting thing is I hang out with my son and his friends, and they're like, well, yeah, I can just hang out with him like he's a normal person. And same thing, I spend time with, and it not, as I said, not necessarily our big streamers. I spend time with our torso streamers a lot. I stream music when I'm on Twitch, and so there are a lot of music streamers that I do like music jams with, and they're all 25, 32, trying to, and then we'll just hang out, and then it helps me understand them.
Yeah, you've also built a good following for yourself on Twitch as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy here, so really appreciate it.
This has been great. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of What's Uptin, where I bring you inside the minds driving tech, money, and power. Follow along on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow my personal account on Instagram @Uptin. Would love to connect with you.